Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Katherine Peterson here with my co host, Michael Regan. And today we get to bring you another superstar from our industry. I'm excited for this one because I haven't seen Jamie in years and years. So that'll be fun. So I'm going to bring Jamie in, and then Michael, I'll bring you into the fold. So Jamie is a top 1% originator. He's been an industry leader, seasoned educator, which is one of my favorite things. And so I'm excited to dig into that with him. He really focuses on three things: impact, growth, and excellence. And so with that, he's really carved out a special spot for himself and his team, things like renovation, all-in-one loan. And he really wants to help people find the best version of themselves, which really leads him into teaching CE classes. And he's a certified trainer for John Gordon. So first, I'm going to bring Michael in, and we're so excited to have Jamie Zeitz here with us today. Michael, welcome in.
Well, I appreciate that, Catherine. And it is great to have Jamie today because Jay-Z and I go back about 10 years now. And during that time, not only have I been able to witness all of this growth that you just spelled out for us, Catherine, but I'm really excited for him to talk a little bit about the mindset behind all of it. Because as you'll see when we bring him into the frame, he brings positivity right out there on the front of the t-shirt. Jamie, great to see you, brother.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys. And yes, it's been too long, Catherine, but we certainly, your name rings often in our conversations.
Yeah, we definitely reference some of the great people that I've been able to pull into rooms together over the years, and you two are no exception to that. Jamie, before we dive into maybe the nuts and bolts, some of the audience might be well aware of who you are. I mean, anytime we have a top 1% producer, their name is well known in the Scotsman's Guide, but they may not know the story behind the story. Tell us where you're operating, a little overview of your team. Clearly, with the branding behind you at CMG, we'd love to introduce the audience. Give us a little background.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with the same crew. I mean, CMG was a recent merger. Well, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, so Northeast Florida is where home base is. Because of some of my brand of teaching and educating, I have a huge database, so I really kind of put myself all throughout the state of Florida. But home base is Northeast Florida. That's where it's been since I got into this business, and now in my 20th year. And we've had different versions of our team throughout, and this is probably one of the leaner versions, if you will, in the marketplace we're in. But we still try to put those pieces in place to, produce at a high level, and more importantly, as Catherine said, make an impact in any way we can. I probably, if as you might learn, and Michael, you probably know, I come from a whole different mindset than a lot of traditional originators in this industry, and come from a different angle, and part of that's my background. Part of it's, not wanting to be what I like to call generic or in the commodity pool. And so it's intentional that I try to play in not the blue ocean, as we like to speak, right? And find different spaces to play in.
All right, well, let's just dive right into the deep end of the pool, Jamie, because I know one of the influences that you had growing up, and we sometimes find this with our guests, is they have these great influences, sometimes at home, sometimes at school, sometimes at work. In your case, one of the first things I learned about you that I loved was that you had a dad who ran and operated a cinema, which I came from an industry in which we sold products to cinema owners, so immediately we had that connection. And your dad comes up over and over again in both our conversations and in your posts because he really did have that entrepreneurial spirit that I think is alive and well in you. Tell us a little bit about the backstory of growing up in the Zeitz home with a dad like you had.
Well, my dad was a wild card, a wild child, wild card. He comes from a different era and the 20s, and he was a big personality, and he did spend 50 years in some ways, different ways in the movie industry, both from original theaters they owned in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is turned 102 years old, and the reopening is this January. That still has our name on it, even though we don't own it. But all the way to working for, regional chains and for Summer Redstone and some of these other big names in the industry. So I think, the reason my dad comes up, a lot of it, not just the personality, I think is a little bit the free spirit, right? And getting that side from him of not giving a rip what people think and having fun and the unconditional kind of love. He was not like the prototypical ideal dad from Ward Cleaver. We're the youngest of four kids coming up in the 70s. That's usually a dysfunctional family waiting to happen. And so, but he did bring, big personality and unconditional love. And I think those are things that in today's world more than ever that you can really appreciate. And I think that's why when you think back about somebody who's been dead for almost for 15 years now, I think you just try to remember those type of qualities. But it
Mm.
did, he did like to do things his way, right? Even in advertising and in the business, he had his own big personality around it, and he did big grand openings, and he did things that most people weren't doing. And I probably get some of that from myself in the way I do things. And then I always say I got the smarts in the organization from my mom, and I got the personality and some of that wild child from my dad.
Catherine, I got to tell you that he summed it up perfectly. That's exactly right. Anytime I've heard stories about Jamie's pop, it really it makes me smile because I realize, okay, I've never met the man, but I feel like I know him, partially because of the stories, but partially because I see him alive and well in Jay-Z.
Yeah, and it's to me it's somewhat intentional. You carry it on within balance. I think I have better guardrails than he had because he had no guardrails. But that being said, the stories he would tell from opening Moby Dick with Gregory Peck and picking him up and taking him to his theater that they did it to dating Linda Lavin, who was Alice from the TV show. Like you can't make those stories up. And when you tell people years later, they call you BS on it. And then you have to call them in the middle of the night on a bus ride home from a football game and put them on the speakerphone and tell everybody. And then they go, oh my God, that's real. And so that kind of stuff to me is the fun part of life, versus just being another dad or another father figure, if you will.
Wow. That's I love those kind of stories. They're fun to share. And I'm sure you kind of grew up with all this storytelling in your life, which makes childhood very, very fun. So tell me a little bit. I'm thinking of the young Jamie around this, and now kind of tell me how that led into, because now you're in mortgage, which is a little bit different than what your dad did. So kind of explain that journey from young Jamie to now.
Well, when I came out of college, I was into athletics. I wanted to be a basketball coach, and then so I kind of morphed into college and realizing that probably wasn't going that route. But I was working in kind of radio and sports, and then I started working at college athletics in college. And after I graduated, I spent 12 years working in college athletics and ended up being in administration. But it was more on the PR, communication, events, marketing, branding side. So that carried on a little bit my dad's creativity and that type of stuff. And so when I got into this business 6 months before the bottom fell out, almost 20 years ago, what I really did was just try to channel that same organization, marketing, PR, and put it into the business and brand I was building. And which is why I've built different brands in this business, whether it's being a top renovation specialist and really drive that home, to my team name brand, which was intentional. One, because people can't say my name, and two, because people remember Jay-Z. And I also wanted to remove my name from it for, future purposes. So for a lot of reasons. So I really just took that, 12 years of cool experiences in athletics and being around some of the Hall of Fame top leaders in the industry for years and years. And then I got into this and I had zero clue what I got into. I was, blessed to get trained well, and you just, I think you figure it out. And every time you think you figure it out, you get knocked back down and you got to figure it out again. And that's happened about 30 times probably in 20 years. And I think that's the only common in our industry is the change, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd ever envision looking back that being in communications and radio and sports, and then all of a sudden you're in the mortgage industry. And and so I think that I tried not to think of it that way. I just try to think of, okay, what's my purpose in what I'm doing now, and what is my mission and my goals here, and can I still achieve that with just a different vehicle, if you will?
So I'm of course intrigued because in addition to admitting that there was a common denominator with your dad's story, we both found out that we both were spending time in college thinking about basketball as a track, and yet we ended up in mortgage lending. I want to go back to that part of the story, or at least I don't want to skip it too quickly, because the way you were just describing some of that makes me think, was that also you on the court? I mean, I've met you in person. You're not 6'8", right? You're not the classic, long, lengthy basketball player. You're probably a guy who did get knocked down, and you were probably really gritty on the court. That's my guess, was you were not going to get pushed around by bigger guys. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I mean, I was the little chunky kid who went to play at the church or at school, and I was going to make you miserable by playing defense and when you wasn't supposed to be playing defense. Or if you were going for a layup, you were going to get knocked into the wall. There was no layups in our world. And so, yes, it's a lot of fire, a lot of overzealous fire going to basketball camp for years. And I was always the one with a chip on my shoulder and played like it and probably still worked like it for the next 20 years also. And I tell people that can be a big detriment or it could be what drives you, right? Like, so that things that my other half complains about, I said, well, that's really what got me to where I am too. So you have to be careful of, your personality can be good and bad, but it can help you in both, however you look at it. And so you're right. I probably took that little spicy personality and it led me, in how I've progressed. And I've just learned to taper it a little bit better more now than I probably did back then. As in, I opened my mouth too much. That's what it was.
Well, that's certainly possible, but I like the way that you're phrasing that because we're all humans being. We're all works in progress. None of us have this thing figured out, and so to recognize that you're drawing from that natural style that you have, and that there is that fine line. Sometimes we cross that line and it burns us. Other times we throttle it properly and it's fuel. It really is the extra gear that we have, and I've seen that with you, Jamie. Is that grit, that tenacity, that drive that I mean, Catherine, this is a guy who just doesn't know the word give up. He just doesn't quit. And so it's really good to see you tie those together for our audience because some people might see what you're doing, here in 2025, heading into 2026 and think, oh, this guy, is just, walking on sunshine. Well,
Hmm.
they don't get to see the cloudy days. They don't get to see the floods. They just see the results. Give us a little bit of a glimpse behind that curtain when you're working hard to prepare yourself for the days and the weeks that are coming. And you already admitted, your team is lean and mean. How does a guy like you get prepared for the type of work you're going to be doing on a daily or weekly basis? Walk our audience through a little bit of your prep.
Well, I think more than ever, as you get older, and maybe when you get to different states of your life, or you're in a different stage of your life, there's so much mental and emotional preparation that you have to do every day. I have some physical back issues and things. That's the physical side every day of getting stretched and things. But from a mental and emotional standpoint, having a morning routine, making sure that I stay in my routine of my journal every morning. It's the first thing I do. Actually, I shouldn't say that. My message of the day, which is now what, Michael, we're into, it's 11th, almost my 12th year of every day, single day. I send a message to a group, to people, not a group. Then I have my journal time, right, and in between the dogs and all the things, and then getting myself ready, whether it's about reading something for 20 minutes a day and doing things of that nature. So I think I don't run to my computer at work early in the morning at all anymore, unless there's something very specific I need to address or I forgot. It's all about getting myself ready, set in the personal way, knowing my body's ready, my mind's ready, whatever the day might hold, and then okay, let's get into it. So if last week I taught a CE class at the Board of Realtors or I hosted a live event in my training room, that event might start at 9:30, 8:30, but I'm up at 4:30 because I need the time to make sure I get my routine in before I jump into it.
So, Jamie, thanks for sharing your morning routine with us. It's always good to hear that. And I want to share with everybody that isn't watching on YouTube that Jamie's wearing a shirt that says stay positive with a little smiley mouth, let's call it. And one of the things that I think is you said earlier that you've been knocked down 30 times or 40 times. I don't we don't keep count, right?
Yeah.
But part of that is staying positive. So tell me, I'm sure morning routine is part of it, but tell me how you kind of are able to pick yourself up, wipe yourself off and say, you know what? I'm going after today. So tell me your kind of recovery that you do, because I think that could be helpful to a lot of people.
For sure. And it's not, there's days it's not easy. There's times Michael's got, as my coach, he's gotten a text from me like, do you have 20 minutes? Because I need to get out of the gutter here, my head out of the gutter, and just need to hear something from somebody else. But generally, because I am a trainer for the John Gordon Company and I've absorbed a lot of information, I'm intentional about trying to have the right attitude and perspective, even when it's hard. I think you have to draw back on that training sometimes. And there's times in my journal where we're going through tough times, and every morning I'll write the same thing for 6 weeks in a row. It'll be like faith over fear, practice perspective, things like that. To just, you're really driving it home in yourself while I constantly put it in front of yourself. So I think having the information, being blessed to have, not just reading books, but doing trainings and having that ability to draw on that can help yourself. And then there's times where because you're so ingrained in that, you kind of just like brush it aside, but then you have to reach out to someone else for help. And I've never been afraid to ask for help, whether it's personal or professional, where I'm feeling, and whether it's Michael is my coach or a family member or somebody, if I'm in one of those funks or it's a tough time, you need some people sometimes just to pour something into you to let you know it's okay. One of my best friends, Catherine, I met him 25 years ago. We were in athletics and he's a basketball coach, right? And he always says that, Jamie, I've never seen somebody reinvent themselves more than you. Every time you get knocked down, you reinvent yourself. But I also draw on someone like that who spent 33 years in the industry and he just now got his first opportunity as a head coach, and what it takes sometimes to grind. So I think you have to look at that and also think about this, and you guys know this, some of the most successful people we know in the world today didn't even get started until their 50s and 60s. Like they didn't break through. And it gives you hope, right? That no matter what happens today, there's hope for tomorrow or for today to be better and for find that breakthrough. And I think that's the faith part, right? And when I teach, I often say, you guys have probably heard this, or at least Michael has, what are the one thing in common, one of the many things in common between faith and fear, right? They both exist in a future that hasn't happened yet. So if we're going to have that happen, why choose fear over faith when it hasn't happened yet? And that's kind of the mindset behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things about your mindset, Jamie, and it's good. Let's dig into this a little more because as I've seen, it's not just a personal application. I mean, you drew a hint on that message of the day, what, 12 years running. You've really been intentional about pouring out from the abundance that's within you to others for a long, long time. And early on, and I can't remember exactly the year, I'm going to guess it was around 2017, you had a vision for pouring out into your community on a much larger level than you had ever done up to that point. And you created a brand called Elevate the Elite. And that vision for that, I mean, you could argue the reinvention comment applies here too. You've reinvented that a couple of times since you've launched it, but the purpose of it seems to be consistent, which is I think you see an opportunity to help other people recognize what's possible and what they can do to embrace that future that is uncertain, that the faith is just as uncertain as the fear, and that we're going to focus. You carry that message out into your community. Tell our audience a little bit about how you saw Elevate the Elite and what it's becoming as it has evolved maybe over the last 8, 9 years.
Yeah, it was actually 2016, so almost 10 years ago. And I had a couple partners at the time, and we were trying to come up with something to pour into the real estate community, knowing that it was coming in through some transition. We just felt we were going to do a big event and we wanted to name it. We had to figure out what can we do to bring, 350 real estate agents together and bring something positive. And, the name of it honestly came when I was out for a run and it just hit me one day. And I was just like, I just came back and I said, this is the name of it. And boom, Elevate the Elite. And the goal ultimately was to create a collaboration community of top producers that could help each other go from being elite to the exception, like collaboration. And what I learned early, because the first one we did had a huge event, we actually had John Gordon speak, and it was a big deal, and it was a big event to put on. But what I realized that day is there are so many people we think are killing it and doing awesome that need help with their emotions and with their mindset and all the things. They were blown away by some of the information that I took for granted. And so that moment I realized there were so many people that could use some of the positivity or just the positive information and affirmations out there on a regular basis. And so, while I was already kind of intentional, it was my goal then to say, how can we continue to bring this to people? Because we always think people are better than they really are, right? We really don't know what's going on. And as you're right, Elevate the Elite, it changed. It changes a lot. In 2020, we kind of repurposed it and it became a whole different animal. We did 12, 15 different versions of it. And then this last year, I had to repurpose it again because it was just me. Like I don't have partners anymore. And this year, we did a whole different version of it tied to education, but it's the still same concept. How do we help people help each other get better? And I just did one thing, and you and I talked about this. I took out the production side because it's not just for real estate agents, for anybody who has a mindset that says, I want to be better than yesterday. I want to be better than average. I want to be elite in some way. So you might be part of Elevate the Elite community and not be elite yet, but you're aspiring to be, and you've got a plan to be, and you're working hard to be. And so I think that's the shift this now is people need to know that, hey, I'm not there yet, but if I aspire to be, then you can be part of this collaboration community.
Jamie, I can feel your passion for this come through the video. Hopefully everybody's getting that in the audio as well. But it's there's different personalities that we've interviewed on the podcast, and some are very more about creating a team, doing things like that. I can just feel that education piece coming out of you in lots of different ways. So For those people who are out there originating saying, I want to be better before I do that. I need to, I'm nervous about teaching. I'm nervous about helping others in this way. Can you kind of tell us what motivated you to do that and how you've been able to keep that confidence as you've been teaching all the people around you?
Well, I do remember I had never really taught that kind of setting. I was relatively, when I did that, I'd say 2012-ish, all right? So I was pretty new in the business in the big picture coming through those first lean years. But I knew I had a passion at that time for a special product, special need that people needed to know about, and I needed to show them how to get there. And so the first one I did, it was, there was no Zoom back then. It was all live. And I remember putting this live event together and inviting, and you don't know who's going to show up, right? And we're at this event and people just keep coming in and coming in and coming in. And before I know it, we have a standing room only crowd of like 150 people. And I was just like, oh boy, now I got to figure out what the heck I'm doing here and get out in front of people for the next 3 hours or whatever the time. I think it was 2 hours back then. Um, but what I would tell people is, I didn't have any formal training. I wasn't afraid to speak in front of people. I do approach education differently. So if you've been to a class of mine or you go to my classes, I come from a place of how do I get people engaged, have fun, keep it light, but keep the content there. It's all about what's in it for you, right? How can I show you how this helps you? But I do think that if I look at myself in 2012 or 2020 and 2025, my ability to grow through it is just by doing it and then evaluating myself and then realizing I just told myself the other day, how stupid am I that I've taught this many classes for this long and for this time I was always doing this when I could have been doing this and engaged so much more. And even though I'd done it for a decade, it took me just one day to look at it and go, you know what? I need to tell more stories. I need to be more relatable. I need to make sure people can feel what we're talking about in real life versus teaching, right? And to wrap all that up, Catherine, I think is if you know your subject matter, find a way to deliver it that brings value to people and just do it and fall down. And guess what? Nobody generally knows the difference. The first time Zoom came in and we had to shift overnight, it was a disaster. Screaming people across the office, things didn't work. It still happens from time to time. I'm in the middle of a Zoom class and something cuts off, my battery dies, something I didn't expect. I have fun with it. I make jokes about it. I talk my way through it. I tell someone to hang on, I'll be back. You just can't take yourself too seriously because people relate to not being great at things. It just being done is better than being perfect, right? Let's just get something out there and fix it as you go. Same thing with video. People are scared to death to do video. I never watch a video once. If I record it, I hit send. I don't care what it looks like, what it said, or anything else, right? Just go, hit it and go. And so I would tell people if you truly or believe in the education part of it, it's a great vehicle to be in front of a lot of people. It's a great vehicle to bring value to people. And it teaches you a lot because you have to learn a lot to show somebody else how it works. And then you have to figure out how do I put this in a way where the audience, like the real estate agent audience, will understand it and be able to apply it in their real world business and life. And that is the trick. It's not about what I know, it's about how you can interpret it and use it. And some of these classes, I change it every single time until I figure it out. And because the subject matter is hard. And just the other day, I had a live event and it took me, I don't know how many times we've done this one. And I finally hit it. Like, this is the first time I thought we connected at the right time. And I was like, man, I've done this a lot. This is the first time I really connected it. It's because I redid everything. I flipped it upside down. I said, let's try this time. Right. Well, a year earlier, I told the whole story the other day. I tried a different thing. I was doing a Zoom. I was actually in New York City on vacation, if you will, and I was doing this class, and I bombed. Awful. I was awful. I got done, and I told Christy and my team, I said, Christy, what did we just do? Like, that was the worst I've ever done. Like, I'm confused. I'm going to call and apologize to everybody. So there are times you try things and you fall flat in your face, but if you try, that's the only way you're going to get better at it.
It's kind of ironic that that story ended in a setting of New York City, right across the river in New Jersey. A guy named Thomas Edison, about 100 years ago, had
Yeah.
that same attitude. And I think we all learned about him when we were in school, but you're living that lesson. You're not just, learning about how many times does it take to invent the light bulb. You're just figuring out all the different ways that don't work and you keep trying. And Jamie, that's inspiring to other people. I'm sure in your day, I mean, you're lacing up your shoes every day and hustling because that's what you do. But for those of us that get to watch from a different camera angle, whether we're, in Jacksonville proper and we see you live without a net, if we're here online and we're part of your online community, we may get to witness it from all different corners of the country. But I think most of us would say, That's a guy who is inspiring because he clearly just doesn't understand the concept of quit. He just doesn't quit. He just keeps pushing and growing. Our listening audience is very likely to be hearing this early in 2026. And so I'd like to riff on this a little bit. As you look ahead, you're no different than any of them. You're preparing for the year ahead. You're going through the process. You and I work on things just like Catherine and I work on things. Tell us about some of the things that you are looking forward to in the year ahead as it relates to these topics, things that you have a high degree of control over, a high degree of influence over. What are some of the things that you can encourage our audience to embrace, even in a year that's not likely to be easy?
I mean, one, control the controllables, right? Like there's certain things you can't control, and I think I try to find a way to control the part. I can't control what the market does. I can't control the rate environment. I can't control clients for to some point, but I can control, what direction we go and looking at this year and making sure that when I go into 2026 that I'm not doing the same thing. Like there'll be a lot of the similar things that we know we like to do and that work, but we have to change many things because there's always gaps, there's changes in the marketplace itself. So as we prepare for the new year, I'm still into the evaluation stage. And just this morning, I was reading something about instead of creating to-do list, creating a to-feel list. Like, how do I get the feelings I want next year? I think I'm probably thinking in that line as much as anything is, what brings you peace and happiness? What brings you fulfillment? And then what do I have to do to get that fulfillment? Now, the challenge is sometimes there's gaps in how to get there, and it's frustrating because you want to get there, but you maybe don't have the resources or the wherewithal to get there as fast as you want. And that's why you have a coach to help you get your mind out of the gutter. But at the end of the day, I think you have to know what you're trying to accomplish, right? Is it just a figure on paper? Do you have a fulfillment goal? Do you have a specific goal about people you affect or what you don't do and do? And this is also not just work, your personal side as well. So I know as we get ready in 2026, the one thing I won't do is be the same as 2025. It's been a hard year and a very different year. We've made some adjustments on the fly and we've made some mistakes and we've done some good things, right? Now it's trying to figure out how do we continue to go deeper in the areas that we really like, that give us fulfillment, and remove ourselves from the stuff that doesn't give you fulfillment, that drains your soul. And that's just as important as finding out where you aren't fulfilled and find a way to move yourself from there.
Jamie, I'm excited for 2026 and what that'll look like for you, but let's project out even further. What are you thinking? We have a lot of changes going on in our industry. We have a lot of changes just in the buying arena. What do you see yourself and your business looking like in, let's say, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I sound like Michael now, just putting that out
Probably a
there.
loaded question, right? A loaded question, whether, will I be in this business in 5 years? I don't know that answer, because I've got some, other goals and things that I'm not, no plan right now to exit, but ultimately, the goal is to have a strategy where I could pivot and use my time more on things that I really think can help others in just in general, in the sense of speaking and coaching and things of that nature. But as far as the industry itself, as I look out for the next year or 2 years, is trying to put framework around myself and my team that puts myself in a position to do the things that my strengths are and fulfill me, like teaching and educating and going deeper in front of people, and then remove myself from the stuff that, while I was good at it for years and still can do it, absolutely drains my soul every day, touching minutia and dealing with the day-to-day minutia of the industry. And doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. It just means that that's not my strength because I don't have the patience for it, or that's not my focus. My focus is the big picture of how do I generate opportunities? How do I help people? How do I create this, the brand? And so how I do that's the magical question. How you put the resources together, how you structure a team, how do you find the right talent within the framework that you have, and then how do you coach them up to represent the brand so you can go do your thing. And we've gone through it before, and we've of many of your iterations, and it looks like that's kind of the process again. And I guess the positive, the positive side is when you have this opportunity, and I don't think Michael even knows this, and I've been given some additional resources going forward that you can actually take a step back and go, okay, here's what I have to work with, and here's where we're trying to go. How do we structure this and put it together so we can get to that place where we are doing the things that make us happy and fulfilled? It's still work and it's still hard, and there's still 95% that could suck every day. We know that, right? But ultimately, you want to be in a place where you really feel like you're making a difference and not just grinding out minutia on a daily basis.
Catherine, I've got a great preview for the question you asked Jamie. You know, we from time to time like to host a podcast episode called Book Club. And in Book Club, we tend to review an author. And I look forward to someday in that 3 to 5 year future having Jamie back on the podcast to tell us about a great book that we both know is in the making. We just don't know when. And when it comes, it'll be the right time because, Jamie, your stories are worth sharing and they're great. I'm so glad our audience today got a glimpse of some of the way that you think and the way that you operate and execute. Because again, many of us from the outside, it's very much, you know, up here in Oregon, we've got some duck fans up this way, and the duck analogy applies. They see this, you know, beautiful bird sitting on the pond. They don't know how hard those feet are fluttering underneath the water. And my sense is we gave the audience a glimpse at, hey, you know, if you're seeing what Jamie's doing and you're impressed by the Jay-Z team, there's a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes. And I just appreciate you sharing that with us today. I really, really have enjoyed having you on the podcast.
I appreciate it, Michael. And you know that part of helping others grow and be the best version of themselves is being sharing yourself, and you're being candid and transparent and good, bad, or indifferent. As you said, my goal was to write a book a year ago. We sat down almost a year ago and together and started the process of it. And I had an epic fail in 2025, so we'll try it again in another next year. But it just goes to show you can have ideas and don't always execute it like you want, but it's not off the table. It's still going to happen here in the future.
Catherine, I can tell you when Jamie asks me to write the preface for this book, it will start with a story of sitting in a bar in Nashville next to the Bon Jovi keyboardist and having a drink. And the story will start from there.
That's right.
Excited to read it, that's for sure. So, and also there's no failure. It's just in progress. So
Exactly.
I don't think you can count that as a failure last year at all.
Not in the least. Listen, Catherine, thanks for allowing us to share Jamie's story with our audience today. Jamie, thanks for being a guest today. And to our crew that's listening, whether you download weekly, download occasionally, I hope you'll share this episode with some folks who just need to hear the positivity that is Jamie Zeitz, the person who we had on today, continues to impact his community in 2026 and beyond. And we're just thrilled we could have a moment with him today. As you share our episodes, as you do subscribe and follow, do in fact comment as well, because we'd love to hear some of the things that you were intrigued by in the dialogue, and maybe we can keep that dialogue going. That's a wrap on today's episode of Building Bigger Lives. We will look forward to seeing you as we do each and every Wednesday with a new episode in the new year. We'll see you soon.